given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Oh, boy. So I guess here's the skinny kids. The Prez is going to talk to the Congress and get congressional authorization. And according to Dempsey, head of Joint Chiefs, basically our strike would be effective today, tomorrow, or next week. So we have a little bit of time. So who knows what's going to happen in Syria? Or did Putin scare us off? Geopolitics 101 here. Tom, you're on the air. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, Carl. I was wondering how the law pertains to the trimming of a neighbor's tree where the branches extend over the border.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we like to say, it's your airspace, so you may trim the branches off.
Okay.
Now, little rub is, if you go up there and you trim the branches off and the tree dies, you might be found to have trimmed it in a negligent fashion and be responsible for killing the neighbor's tree. So,
okay.
We usually recommend that you talk to the neighbor and say, I would like to trim those branches. Do you want to get an arborist in here together, and then you can just get a whole general tree trimming done. And then, I'll pick up part of the cost, and you pick up part of the cost. Or I'm going to hire an arborist, and he's going to trim those branches off, but I just want to make sure you're aware of it. That way you've done two things. Number one is you delegated the negligent factor to the arborist. He'll take the risk of that, okay? Number two, he or she knows what they're doing, so they're probably not going to kill the tree. Okay.
And I was also wondering what the deal is with putting a fence on the border, like how close to the line.
Well, theoretically, you can't put your fence on the border of the other guy's property, okay?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if he agrees and you guys want to put a fence right down the middle of the line, you could. In the modern era, however, there are a lot of zoning ordinances and township regulations about how close the fence can be to the property line.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
540-0580. Ray, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. My brother and I bought a hunt camp together, land and a building for $100,000. I paid $60,000. He paid $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then we built a new structure on there. He put about $20,000 into it. I put about $40,000 into it. He hasn't been paying the taxes in the past couple of years because he can't afford it. And on the lease, we did when we bought it together, it was joint tenants with rights of survivorship. If something happened to one of us, the other one gets it. Now he's saying he can't afford it, and he wants $120,000 for his half, and he only put $60,000 into it, maybe.
Well, he only put $60,000 into the initial purchase, right?
No, when we bought the land, I paid $60,000, he paid $40,000 of the $100,000. Then we built another place on there because the first place that was in there was too small for the camp. We get a bunch of people in there, so we thought, well, make it bigger, our kids, our nephews. So we built another place beside it new. We didn't want to attach it to the other one because the other one had termites, blah, blah, blah. So I put $40,000 into the new camp, and he might have put $20,000.
Okay. So
now he's saying that he wants $120,000 or so thousand.
Here's what we would do. It looks like we would apportion your purchases, okay? So you guys bought it together, right? You own it together jointly, right, as survivorship?
Just me and him are on the deed, but we tended to pass it down to our kids, keep it in the family.
Right.
But he's not now.
But you did not allocate like 60-40 on the deed.
No, sir. But,
okay. So presumptively, here's how we would look at it. You guys bought it 50-50, okay?
Uh-huh.
You put more money into it. He put less money into it. So we would take the sales price, pay both of you back out, and then divide the remainder equally between the two of you.
Well, I don't want to sell it, though. That's the thing. He says,
well, you don't have to sell it, except that he can file a partition action and make you sell it.
Well, what about the new house that was built on there that he only put in?
Well, that's my point is you guys put money into the land, all right? So here's how we would do this. The judge would say, all right, let's just sell it, and whatever's left over, you get back your money in, he gets back his money in, and then we split the difference. So that's your buyout. So if you figure out how much, what you need to do is figure out what the value of the property is currently. Like, what would I pay for it? So let's say I would pay $200,000 for it, and that the two of you together have $160,000 in it. That means there's going to be $40,000 in profit. So you divide the 160 up by how you guys allocate it. So if you put in 100 of it and he put in 60 of it, you get the first 100, he gets the next 60, and then you take that remaining 40,000 and split it 20-20. So now your buyout of him would be 80,000, and his buyout of you would be 120,000.
Okay. All right.
That's, yeah, and he can force it, because if he came to see me, what we would do is file a partition action saying, Judge, my brother and I don't see eye to eye anymore. I want out of this property. And then the judge would hold an auction and partition the land. The other way the judge can partition it, by the way, is he can just divide it physically in half. And he could say one cabin goes to you, one cabin goes to him. We'll carve the land up this way, if it can be done in a fair way.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Yep. Can't, that's the one problem. Now, so you guys probably didn't put together an agreement, but sometimes I tell guys with doing hunting camps,
that's what it is.
do a master agreement that explains what's going to happen if somebody wants out or doesn't want to, pay their fair share at some point.
We figured one would die before the other.
Well, there's always November.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
540-0580. Richard, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. How's it going today?
Good.
Just a little comment about your cars at a red light. I tested that one time. It was a little bit of a curve, and I could count there was 10 cars ahead of me.
Uh-huh.
And it took me 20 seconds before I started to move.
So it's almost 2 seconds a car.
Approximately 2 seconds. That's approximately right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And you're right about 90% of the people out there think they're better drivers than they are. 50% of them are idiots anyway.
Well, listen, sometimes I cross-examine somebody, or maybe even meet with them in my office, or just meet them at a bar somewhere, and after talking to them for 10 minutes, I'm not even sure how they're allowed to breathe, let alone drive.
Oh, yeah. You ever want to catch somebody who thinks they're a good driver? Ask them, what's the 4-second rule for driving in fog? And you'll get a blank expression on their face. They have no idea.
What is the 4-second rule for driving in fog?
And probably most of the listeners are wondering the same thing.
We can cover the distance you can see in 4 seconds?
Correct. You watch for something along the side of the road, a sign or whatever, and you count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. And if you get to that object before you get 1004, you're going too fast.
Right, because you're not going to have enough stop time.
Got that right.
The law, we call that the assured clear distance rule, meaning that you should be able to stop in the distance you can see.
Right. And 4 seconds is usually enough time.
Yeah, there's some hellacious accidents in the fog.
Oh, well, they're only using a 2-second rule, not a 4-second rule. They should be using 2-second following distance to start with. I have a Class A commercial driver's license, and I even think I should have a little refresher course from time to time.
When I was in high school, they showed us this film. Our shop teacher was also the driver's ed teacher. When he didn't want to feel like teaching shop class, he'd just throw a driver's ed movie on and make us watch it. And we watched one on the Smith method of driving. And, if you follow the Smith method, everybody's cars are, 10 lengths apart, and there's less wear and tear on the brakes, and you save on the gas. But everybody maintains these long distances from each other. And you're like, yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, well, with the car length theory, it was, is it a Cadillac or a Volkswagen car length?
Right.
That's why they went to the 2 and 3 second following distance. It's a lot more reliable and a lot easier to calculate.
According to my grandmother, you just have to keep the emblem on the white line, and then you're centered in your lane. And I'm like, Grandma, some cars don't have emblems, and second of all, that length of the hood, I think, may have an effect on that. You may not be in your lane.
Possibly. Plus, her attention span is not supposed to stop at the front bumper.
It did. Trust me.
Here's another one most people can't answer. How far down the road are you supposed to look?
I don't know. As far as I can see, I guess.
Correct. Most people say 10 seconds. Most people a quarter mile. You should always look as far as you possibly can.
Yeah, when you're playing chess, you're supposed to look as many moves ahead as you can, and when you're doing skiing and you're going through the gates, you're supposed to plan your turns 2 gates ahead. When you're in the car, it's how far can you see.
Right. Absolutely.
The long and short of it is that driving is a hazardous activity, but its economic benefit so far outstrips its hazardness that we've all agreed to let each other drive.
Oh, true. like the History Channel, when they talked about cars, approximately 40,000 people die on American highways every year.
Yeah.
If that many people died in plane crashes, you know what kind of outcry there would be from the public? Oh my goodness, they'd be saying revamp the entire airline system. 40,000 people dying each year in airplanes, but 40,000 people dying each year in cars. So what?
Right. Yeah, but if 6 die of a gunshot wound, then they got to ban guns. Remember that too.
Oh, good point.
All right, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye. 540-0580. See you after the break. Oh, boy. Oh, Tom Petty. Carol, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hi, Carl. I'm calling about my son who had applied for a permit to carry. He previously had a DUI and apparently a drug paraphernalia charge. On the application, he checked no on the box with the question regarding did he have any drug-related charges. He claims he didn't realize that having paraphernalia was, under that.
Drug-related.
Yeah. So he received a summons in the mail shortly thereafter. He got turned down and received a summons in the mail for a misdemeanor 1 for, I guess, making the mistake of saying that he made a statement under penalty, I guess is what he's saying, statement under penalty. So he has a preliminary hearing on October 4th, and our question is what should he do about this? Does he need a lawyer to represent him?
Yeah, he should. A misdemeanor 1 is going to, first of all, disable him from ever owning a gun again.
Okay.
Second of all, it is a serious offense, could go to jail for it. Number 2, he may not be guilty of it. In fact, quite frequently in these cases, a good defense can be made that the person answered it honestly, even though incorrectly.
He did. That's what he said.
Well, I said that's what he said. I mean, but here's my point. My point is that is a viable defense because, quite frankly, they've got to prove not only that what he said was false, but that he knew it was false.
Okay.
Now, if he goes and talks to the police, for instance, has he done that yet?
No, I don't think he does.
No, good, because that won't help him.
Okay. Okay. So do not talk to the police.
No, he should not.
Okay. So he lives in Carlisle there. I guess he could call your law office.
Yes, and I actually have one of these cases that's going to trial right now. And again, it's the kind of thing that can be won. So. Okay.
Well, I'll tell him to give you a call then next week.
All right. Thanks.
All right,
bye. 540-0580. Skip, you're on the air.
Hi, how you doing, Carl?
Good.
Hey, in regard to the gentleman who called up about adopting his 2 adult daughters,
Yeah.
if he's doing it strictly for to pass on inheritance to them without paying the inheritance tax, there's another way he can do that. In Pennsylvania, all life insurance proceeds are not taxable.
Correct.
So if you take, let's say you have $100,000 or $200,000, you buy a single premium whole life insurance policy. And you can put both names on, and the proceeds would go to both or whoever of the 2 are living at the time that you pass away. And
that's a pretty good piece of advice, actually, because you can use those life insurance policies. And I'll go one step farther. Say you potentially were going to hit the federal tax ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. My understanding is then you can place the ownership of the policy in the recipient, even though it's on your life, and then it isn't includable in your gross estate.
That's true. The only thing would have to be that they have to have an insurable interest in your life.
Correct.
So in that part, more than likely, if they were those daughters, it'd probably be all right.
So thank you, Skip, for reminding us of that.
Just one other real quick comment.
Yeah.
In regard to the Middle East.
Yeah.
When you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. Thanks, Carl.
All right, bye. True, so true. Lewis, what's going on, my friend?
I have an observation. I just want to know if you can give an opinion about it, about why police are always out in force on a holiday weekend ticketing cars.
Well, if I'm going to go duck hunting, I want to go to where there's a lot of ducks, right?
All right.
So, holiday weekend, lots of travelers, a lot more people to ticket. I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I think that's the answer. Now, they'll say, well, because of holiday, and I guess on 4th of July, it's New Year's, and there might be some more irresponsible drunk driving late at night. But here's the other thing. Guess who pleads guilty to their tickets and doesn't fight them?
Nobody.
Well, people from out of state. So if I send my officers out on a high travel day with lots of civilians on the road, truck drivers we're not including in this equation, okay? You pull over a guy from Wisconsin, he may still fight the ticket because it's a CDL driver. You get a little old lady from Wisconsin going 80 on the turnpike, you give her a ticket, she's just going to send it in, right? But if you pull over a local yokel, he might actually take the hearing. So the cost-benefit to the big money vacuum of the state police and local municipalities is even better on holidays, too.
All right, thanks.
All right, man. I hate to be so cynical, but it's all about the money. 540-0580. John, when and where were you hit by a golf ball?
I was in my yard doing some edging with a shovel, and I'm about 150 yards off the tee. And the fellow hit the ball, and it didn't hit anything until it caught the back of my head and kind of knocked my lights out for a minute. My ears were ringing to beat the band, and I came, got my senses back after about 5-6 seconds. And when I first bought this place, it's on a golf course, and the golf course manager, I guess, told me that the golf course doesn't have any liability, that if I had damage to my home or an injury that I had to contact or get a hold of the golfer that actually hit the ball. And what I told the guy when they came up, I went out with a pad and a pencil, and I said, if I have any medical issues or medical expenses that my insurance doesn't cover, I want to know your name and address. And so the bump went away, but my ears are still ringing pretty hard on me. And so I don't know. I'm not the suing type, but I was just curious to get your opinion on that.
Right. Well, yeah, it's an interesting question. You have the golfer's name and address?
I do.
I mean, you certainly can bring a claim against him. He didn't yell for.
No, there was no warning.
And you didn't assume the risk of playing golf because, if you were on the golf course, you assume the risk of an errant tee shot. Okay.
I would guess that's probably right.
Actually I saw a court opinion where the judge found you do not assume the risk of a second unannounced tee shot. But that's a whole other story. So yeah, you have a lawsuit. It's his negligence to hit the ball out that way. Didn't yell for, which might depreciate the negligence. You weren't assuming the risk. And I did see at least one golf course lawsuit in the Mayapple in Cumberland County years ago. A homeowner successfully enjoined them and made them move a hole because balls were landing in their yard. But that was because that house predated the golf course. And all the other houses that were built subsequent were built on land that came with deed restrictions for the golf course,
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you have a lawsuit. Now, his homeowner's policies, would cover his act of negligence. So
I see.
You hope he has a homeowner's policy or a renter's policy.
Yeah, he would.
So, yeah. Now, if you got to get a doctor to link the ringing now to getting hit by the golf ball.
Yeah.
If I find out you worked on a drop forge for 20 years, that might hurt your chances.
No, I'm an audiologist, actually.
Well, there you go. So you probably know somebody who could link the two.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for your time.
All right, boss. He's got a lawsuit. Yeah. 540-0580. We're going to work our way into the half hour here. Tom, you're on the air.
Yeah, Carl. Referring to the caller about holiday enforcement of traffic regulations.
Yeah.
You're right when you say it's all about the money, but basically the big brother federal government thinks that they need to do something, and what they do is put out large grants to states and municipalities to give them overtime pay for the officers. The officers are glad to get the overtime, and the feds feel good about thinking they did something great.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yes. Thanks for Big Brother.
But I'm sure because of all those tickets, they saved 3 lives.
Exactly.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, boss.
Sure. Bye.
I like that. It's so true. Now, Tomorrow, big Harrisburg Beer and Cigar Barbecue. Sunday, September 1st, 2 p.m. $50 gets you $100 worth of cigars. Stop in. I'll be there. It's over on Union Deposit, right near the Lowe's. You won't be able to miss the picnic, barbecue. Got to be there. You got to be there. You got to be there. I'll see you there. If you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend you call RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy outright or sell your items at auction. RJ Gold, not RJ Harris, but RJ Gold, can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, badges, and most historical collectibles. He can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061, 3712 North 6th Street, Harrisburg. And RJ's next awesome auction is Sunday, September 29th at 1 p.m. at the American Legion in Harrisburg. PA licensed auctioneer AU 005798. Again, RJ Gold, 645-0061. If you've got an estate, household, moving, you want to do an auction, call RJ, 645-0061. Or if you just want to sell some collectibles, 645-0061. And we got to go to break. See you in a minute. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Oh, boy. Is it a holiday or what? It's going to rain. Did you hear that weather forecast? It's sort of like, it's not going to rain as much today as probably the next couple days. I think that's what he tried to say. Is that the summer you're getting, Shane?
That's what I understood it as.
Yeah, that's what I heard it as, too. He doesn't want to just come right out and say it's going to rain on your picnic or rain on your parade or your Capona or whatever else you're up to. I don't know. What festival is that? Is that Capona? Is that what
It's
that?
Capona.
It's Capona. Yeah, I may have to stop down there. I don't know. They're going to be going tomorrow, too?
I think it's going up until Monday.
Oh, up until Monday. Okay, yeah. Of course, I'm going to go to a picnic tomorrow at 2 o'clock at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar, so we'll see how many listeners stop out. I'll be puffing away, huffing and puffing. Oh, boy, nothing beats a good cigar, you know. So the president's going to go to Congress, and it's kind of interesting because, I've complained in the past that we've completely abandoned the war powers doctrine and allowed the president to sort of act as king. So this may be a good pushback to congressional power. Now, of course, congressmen and women probably prefer not to exercise real power, right? Because the buck has to stop somewhere, and if they stamp off on it, then later the president's going to say, well, you're not happy about what happened in Syria, but Congress told me to. So let the politics begin. 540-0580 if you have a legal question or concern you want to talk about. Again, we're all wishing Ken Matthews a big success. Maybe he'll accept my Facebook friend request here shortly. It's only been pending for 2 weeks. But we'll see what's going on with that show. I'll be anxiously listening on Tuesday at 3 o'clock to hear the Durgan replacement. I hope you guys tune in, too. Obviously, I just like beating up on the guy because he took my job. Kept my babies starving to death, that sort of thing. I'm so amused with myself sometimes. Just see in Carlisle, they got this vote. They just got rid of the 911 center, and I can't quite understand. They're getting rid of the local dispatch, and I guess 70 people were in attendance, and they voted it down. And I don't know if anybody has any comments about that. I'd be curious because I don't really understand what's going on. I don't really pay attention to Carlisle politics too much just because they usually seem so inconsequential about what they're fighting over there. Of course, so while I was snoozing, they put the road diet through, which is the greatest improvement in Carlisle traffic in the history of the world. Now you can wait 20 more minutes to get through town instead of like it used to be with 2 lanes so you could go around the slow people. But hey, what do I know? Every once in a while, it's nice to get out of your car, though, and not get your car door conked, I guess. John, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
Hi, I work at a retail establishment. A consumer or a customer brought a dog in off of a leash. It bit me, 40-some stitches. Do I have recourse against my employer? I know I have recourse against the individual and his homeowner's insurance.
The short answer is yes and yes.
Okay.
You may have workers' comp. If you contact me off the air, I put you in touch with a guy that specializes in that.
Do I call you at 241-6670?
241-6070.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, John, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, if you get bit at work by somebody else's dog, it's an injury at work, and so it's not your negligence. The employer probably could exclude dogs from the premise, of course. I guess I wouldn't work at Super Pets or whatever. That's why I take my son. It's like a petting zoo. We go to the pet store, and we get the animals in the cages, and then we walk around, and he pets people's dogs, and he feels like we went to the zoo. And it's just, and I get a Starbucks and stop by Target all at the same time. Pretty cool. What else did I want to talk to you guys about? Oh, so was I mumbling something about Syria? I want to get back to that for just a minute. This is a big proxy war. I mean, we're really in a new era here, where Russia has risen again on its energy resources, has bought its way back into a superpower, basically. And the geopolitical interests of China and Russia and the United States are going to continue to rub against each other. And I think we're going to see more of these proxy fights in these other areas, the Middle East, Africa, fights over resources. We even have Spain and England scrapping it out over some islands, Gibraltar, I think. You don't see that, in recent years. You don't see maybe the Falkland Island issue, but that's just a craziness. And an earlier caller today, which I think pointed out something very important. He was pointing out that the rest of the world is very upset with us right now, and in ways that I don't think always play well here, so we don't really pay attention to it. By the way, this is kind of interesting. Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg is to officiate a same-sex marriage. Saturday will mark the first time a Supreme Court member conducts a same-sex marriage ceremony. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will officiate the marriage of longtime friend John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts President Michael M. Kaiser to economist John Roberts in the atrium of the center in Washington. It's just a ceremony followed by a dinner with about 200 attendees by a Supreme Court justice. So I think we've officially entered a new era. Of course, Governor Corbett, in a brief filed in court, we have that 540-0580 if you want to get in on the conversation, by the way. Have a legal question or you just want to bump in here, 540-0580. Governor Corbett's suing to stop the guy down there in Montgomery County from issuing same-sex marriage licenses, and in his brief argued that a marriage between two men or two women is the equivalent of a marriage between two 12-year-olds and is no more valid than as if two 12-year-olds presented to get married, which I found kind of amusing because it is kind of true in a way if you go from technical legal definitions. But there are times when you're making an argument in court and you represent a political interest, and maybe the things we would argue in court aren't the things we want written in the newspaper, which is why sometimes when we have oral arguments in front of appellate courts or even in front of trial courts, the secretary will say, does the client need to be there? And you're like, no, do not want the client there. The reason you sometimes don't want your client there is because during a legal argument, you might speak very frankly. Yes, I realize my client's a bonehead and he did all these things wrong, but even if that's true, now the client doesn't want to hear you concede all these things about them. But for purposes of the legal argument, you may have to. It may be the legal standard. You have to concede certain allegations if you're trying. And so you say, even if he did all these things, or even if it's all true, or if they're, just simply say, assuming that my client is the schlep that the other side says he or she is, I still prevail, and here's why. Now, imagine what happens when you walk out in the hallway is your client's like, you just told the judge that I'm a thief, a liar, and I'm fat. And you're like, well, yeah, I did because I was trying to help the judge understand that all that's irrelevant because as a matter of law, you still should prevail. The conversation doesn't go over well. That's the same problem the governor is having with fighting the same-sex marriages. Anything they write in the briefs is going to be, mangled or taken out of context or twisted or pulled in a direction for political purposes. I'm pretty confident we'll have same-sex marriages here in Pennsylvania pretty shortly. Just like I'm pretty confident we're going to have legalized marijuana in the United States pretty shortly, too. I was in court the other day, and my client was pleading guilty to possessing a paraphernalia pipe. And, of course, he got a $25 fine and court costs because he had a marijuana pipe when he was picked up for speeding. The police felt the need to pat him down for some reason. There may have been some unconstitutional searching going on there. I'm not certain. But based on the circumstances, we pled to the pot pipe. And long story short, I say, hey, Judge. The judge is like, what do you have anything to say before sentencing, Mr. Rominger? And, of course, pro forma, we've pled him guilty. The judge is going to give immediate sentencing. He's getting a small fine, and he's walking out the door. And I, of course, say, well, yes, Your Honor. I just want to point out that probably in 2 years, this conduct will probably be legal. And the judge is like, well, that's interesting, but it has nothing to do with why we're here today. I said, I know, Judge. I just thought it's ironic that someday he can tell his kids that he did something illegal that's no longer illegal, and he doesn't even have to wait that long to do it. It is funny. I had another client down in Chambersburg charged with possession of paraphernalia, and the judge down there wanted to give him 1 year's probation because down in Chambersburg they are still they're a little more in the dark ages than they are up this way when it comes to marijuana. And he lived in Colorado, and I call out to Colorado and say, hey, the judge is mad at me because I need to arrange some probation thing with you guys, or she's going to make my guy serve jail time in Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and wants my client to go to probation for a year. And, of course, I said, well, Judge, I don't understand. I called him. I said, I go back the next night. I go, Judge, I called him, and they laughed at me. They're like, what do you mean paraphernalia probation? It's not even criminal. And sure enough, in Colorado, even back a few years ago, the possession of drug paraphernalia was not considered a criminal act in and of itself, or at least to the extent it could have been charged, it never was. And so they were scratching their heads how anybody could be on probation for a year, let alone probation at all for paraphernalia. So, the wide world is changing. Get ready. We'll have legalized marijuana. We're going to have same-sex marriages. I don't know what other social issues are on the cusp. I just don't know what the very next social issue will be. I may be missing it. But anyhow, in these culture wars, so to speak, it'll be interesting to see how the courts and the legislatures, and now with the Supreme Court actually officiating gay marriage, I would expect to see that they'll continue the trend of striking down state restrictions on the same. 540-0580, and get back from the break. I'll take your calls. Well, last little segment here before I go on vacation. Mike, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
How's Carl today?
I'm not too bad. I ate some tasty ribs from Red's. What else did I do? I had a beet for breakfast, Can't beat that. Superfood.
You say you're going on vacation. You're going to be on next Saturday?
I will. Yeah, my version of vacation is between now and tomorrow morning. I just have to get up. I just have to get out of bed by 2 p.m., by 1 p.m. to make it to Harrisburg Beer and Cigar for the exciting barbecue. So I'm just going to smoke some cigars and drink some booze and probably pass out somewhere.
Yeah, I like your commercial with those cotton suits and
200% cotton.
That's a top-notch commercial.
I'll tell you what, I believe, I can't prove it, but I'm told that the 200% cotton is actually a reference to Anchorman, Ron Burgundy. Apparently one of his characters apparently at some point says that their suit is made of 200% cotton. And
that's a top-notch commercial. Yeah. Hey, I don't have a legal question, but I'm going to try to pin you down there and get your personal opinion about Syria. Do you think we should do something or not?
I hate to agree with the president, but once in a while. Here's what happened. See, he just said something today which I liked, which was, crouched in political rhetoric, but he said, how can our children live in a world when we don't do what we say?
It was a good presentation there. I agree.
And here's the problem. We have historically maintained, all through our presidents since World War II, that if anybody uses a biological, anybody uses a chemical weapon or a nuclear weapon anywhere in the world, we reserve the right to retaliate against that. We have said that with absolute certainty for years because we wanted a great deterrence on it. And here's the problem. There's a lot of complications going on in Syria. There's a lot of stuff that makes it not worth getting involved in. But once it becomes clear to this guy that you can gas a few thousand people and we're still not going to get involved, and now, of course, Iranian and Iraq war we sat out of. There's some issues there, too. So it's not without precedent for us to sit out of gassings and chemical weapons attacks. But at the same time, as it becomes more and more increasingly easier to use these things, if there's no threat of retaliation from us or no threat of danger from the United States, and even though we don't want to be the world's policeman, I think it's in our best interest to slow down proliferation and use of these things.
Yeah,
so
I agree. There's always going to be civil wars, dictatorships, and where do you draw the line? If this guy, if we don't do anything, what's to stop it from happening in other countries?
Okay, so the threshold is now they killed 1,600 people. Okay, well, now the next guy kills 3,000. What number does it have to get to before we say that this is an atrocity?
Well, they had a survey, and it was only 50-50. I'm surprised. I don't know if those people saw those bodies of those kids, just in rooms.
They're too busy.
Hard to watch something
Hey.
like that and think somebody should get away with it. I'm not for. I'm a Vietnam vet. I wasn't for Iraq, Afghanistan, but I think you got to draw the line in the sand when you start, gassing people.
Well, here's what you need to do if you want to get the American soccer moms and do-gooders roused up here. Just find some pictures of Syrian dogs who died of the gassing.
Okay.
Yeah, just put 3 puppies.
99% to do something.
Put 3 puppies that died of the gassing on TV, and we'll have the entire country ready to nuke the place.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But you show them 400 dead kids, and they're like, "Oh, wow."
Yeah, too bad.
Wow, look at that. That's terrible.
Well, I'm in the same. I agree with you. I think they should do something. Now.
I think we have to, just because we cannot. And, if the Ryan Doctrine, if you remember, if you read any of Clancy's books, right, the Ryan Doctrine was, we will assassinate the leader of anybody who uses weapons of mass destruction, decapitation attack. If we could do that, if we could kill Assad, but unfortunately killing the head of state of a country like that and doing it efficiently is A, almost impossible, unlike the book, and B, the problem is we don't necessarily like who's going to replace him in the power vacuum. So it seems to be in our own best interest to just wrap him on the knuckles good and hard and say you can't, don't do this or you'll be punished again, and let it work itself out over there.
Well, I agree, and I'm glad he's going to go to Congress. It'll be a dilemma if it doesn't go with him, since they never agree,
Congress, listen, Congress has a lot of jobs to do that they don't do. They love to pass feel-good laws, but it's about time they get their ass in gear and make a hard decision on something.
Yeah, I agree.
It takes some political responsibility. If you want to lead.
Yeah, I wish they would, and a lot of other things, too, but it doesn't seem to happen. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, very thoughtful. 540-0580. John, you're on the air.
Hi, criminal question for you. I have a DUI conviction over 10 years ago. Okay. Hypothetically, if I would get charged again, would it be my second conviction?
It would be your second conviction, but it would be your first for mandatory sentencing purposes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a little caveat there. You still there?
Yes.
Yeah, judges will sometimes hold that against you. So even though the guidelines are different and the mandatories doesn't apply, I had a guy one time, and I'm like, well, Judge, this is his first for mandatory sentencing purposes, third lifetime. And the judge is like, yeah, and that's why he's not just going to jail for 3 days.
Gotcha.
On the other hand, the grading, because our grading is dependent, the fact that it's a first offense instead of a second or third offense for grading purposes changes your maximum periods of probation and your maximum driver's license losses and other penalties quite heavily. So,
do they look at prior record scores too for other charges?
They do.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
boss.
you.
Thank you. Oh boy. I don't think we're going to get any more callers today. It's that kind of afternoon. Everybody's out there picnicking it up, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing. I just want to remind you, go to RomingerLaw.com. If you like that Most Interesting Attorney in the World commercial, you can listen to it there. We've got it clipped up there. We've also got the Dos Equis guy and a whole montage of his actual ads. So should you feel like chuckling a bit, just go to RomingerLaw.com to the news feed, and you'll enjoy it. It's pretty good. Oh, maybe this is Ken Matthews calling in. You think? Is that Ken Matthews on the hotline? No? Oh. I see the hotline ringing. It's probably RJ calling to yell at me. Oh, Shane's putting something up on the board here. I don't know what he's putting up. I don't know. What's that say, Shane? Who is it? I don't see a name. Oh, Dave, you're on WHP. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, Carl, it's Dave, and Dave Nesbitt from Keystone Elder Law. I've been listening to you, and I'm hearing you say you like to picnic.
I do.
Well, I wanted to invite you to a picnic.
Oh.
The folks at Keystone, in cooperation with the Alzheimer's Walk, on Saturday the 21st of September, we're going to be having a picnic after the walk. And we're encouraging our friends to join us at the walk and for a picnic. It's the one time of the year that we get out and try to raise money for the Alzheimer's Association.
When and where is that?
Well, it's at City Island, and the walk is on Saturday, September 21st.
Saturday, and Shane, we'll make sure Shane gets that in our...
Yeah, we'll tell you about it in the weeks ahead, but we're going to be walking, and we're going to have a little picnic afterwards. There's going to be a band that's going to do a lot of our favorite cover tunes, probably be several hundred people. Chance for you to get a lot more friends for your Facebook page, Carl.
Well, why not?
What's a few more hundred when you got thousands, right?
Seriously, though, it'll probably be a good band because you're an old hippie, so I'm sure the cover songs will be
Well,
good.
sure. It's Bob Yakin, whose wife Jamie at Bethany Village. It's Bob and his friends, and I heard them last year. They're really good.
Cool. Well, we will be there.
And there's a lot of fun events. There'll be newspaper celebrities and TV celebrities and just a lot of good times. So if people are interested, they can call us at Keystone Elder Law, and that's 697-3223. It spells My Peace. We'd love to have people walk with us, and if they can't walk, they can make a contribution. We were the top team in our category, raising over a couple $1,000 last year. We're trying to do that this year.
Well, we'll be watching for it.
Well, that's good. Appreciate the help getting the word out. You were talking about social issues, and one that's on the horizon that we just don't know what to do about is Alzheimer's and dementia. It's not a happy one, but it's a big one, and we try to have a good time that day to put a good spin on it and hope for better things in the future.
I appreciate it. I know, and it's a disease that's not reached its peak yet. So
it hasn't, and unless people have been unfortunately in a position where they faced it personally, they just don't get it. But once they faced it, they really get it.
I know.
And,
I got to let you go, Dave. Thanks.
Yeah, we're having picnics this weekend and lots of fun. I hope yours is as good as ours.
It will be. Carl Rominger here signing out. See you guys next week. Go to RomingerLaw.com, Facebook. In the meantime, love you all. God bless. Happy holiday.